Hello interwebs and welcome to my channel. I hope all of you are doing incredibly well today. I know I am doing incredibly well today because I'm assuming you already know, considering you've clicked on the thumbnail and clicked on the video, but I had the really wonderful opportunity to talk to one Ian Alexander, who most of you, I would assume, may know from their portrayal of Gray on Star Trek Discovery, the most recent season of Star Trek Discovery, the first ever transgender character and transgender character of color within the Star Trek franchise, which is so exciting. I was very excited and touched and honored that they gave me so much of their time to just sit down and have an hour-long conversation about not only Star Trek, but we also talk about their other roles in The Last of Us Part 2, in the OA, and also their role in an upcoming movie that has yet to come out yet. It was a really wide-ranging conversation, and it was a lot more casual. I wanted to keep it a little bit more fun, a little bit lighter, and we do talk about everything from trans topics and trans issues both within Star Trek and exploring gender and things beyond just, trans issues within media. But we also talk a little bit about them as a person, and we also just try and talk about just life in general, because I really wanted this conversation to be about a little bit more than just Star Trek. But of course, obviously, I'm a Trekkie, I'm a nerd. We talk about Star Trek as well. So this was a really wonderful conversation. It was truly an honor to be able to have the chance to do this. And thank you, Ian, if you are happening to be watching this little intro here. It was truly wonderful to have this time with you and to connect with you even for a short while. And I hope that all of you out there in the audience enjoy our conversation as much as I enjoyed just getting the chance to have it. Without further ado, here is my interview with Ian Alexander from Star Trek Discovery. Make sure everything's running. I get a backup going because I know my computer is not always friendly to me. And we are... I just built a new computer literally yesterday for the first time. It was hell. And it barely it's chugging along. I'm like, I think something's wrong. So I'm glad I still have this one, but I'm also this one also does not love me.
Props to you for building a whole PC though. That's congratulations. That's a big
it
deal.
Was terrifying because I'm there's $500 pieces in there. I'm don't break, please.
Yeah. It's very careful and surgical almost.
Yeah. People are it's like Legos for adults is what everyone described it. I mean, it's I'm sorry, my Legos were not $500. I stepped on my Legos and would scream in pain. I'm not stepping on my $500 processor or whatever.
Yeah, no, that seems a bit nerve-wracking, but I hope it gets easier the more that you there are friends that I know that have just they will disassemble and put it back together, and I'm how do you keep track of all those pieces? Wow, it's intense.
Yeah, I had dropped a screw. There was there's this tiny little screw that you have to put in your hard drive on with. I was doing this with another YouTuber who was helping me, who was a god. And you were talking a novice through all this stuff. And I dropped this tiny little screw through this hole. I'm well, that's it. I think I ruined the entire PC with this one freaking small screw. I had to pull everything out to get it. It was such a pain. So yeah, it was a fun experience, but it's not one that I'm raring to go again on. But I can see how it can be addicting once you get to it. But yeah. Well,
it seems it requires. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that seems it requires so much patience, and I'm kind of an instant gratification kind of person. So
why do you think I do YouTube? It's I can just rant at a camera, and then it automatically goes out to people and yay, this was the best review ever, which I appreciate so much. I love people saying that, but I'm just yelling at a camera. So I really appreciate you thinking that the things that are in my brain pan are worthwhile.
That's amazing. There's got to be people that share their opinions and start conversations, and you are one of those people. So,
well, thank you. Yeah. Well, that is a wonderful transition, no pun intended, to get to talking about you, because you are someone who is out there and doing really cool stuff. And obviously, my honor is you from Star Trek, but you've been doing so many cool things lately. With you did Lev in The Last of Us. Which, by the way, I know we're going to mostly talk about Star Trek because that's my channel, but I love Lev was easily the heart of that game. You did such a fantastic job.
Thank you.
You were in the OA. Well, yeah, of course. You were amazing. You're in the OA. I know you have a movie coming out that we can touch upon too, but like, how does it feel to like be, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but how does it feel to like be at this like precipice of like doing like so much as like a trans actor out there in so many different like spaces and being visible?
I think one of the most beautiful things about like spending so much time at home lately is that I've really connected with a lot of other trans actors online and realized how many of us there are. And so, I kind of felt a bit alone for a while, sort of like pioneering this industry, being like the first out Asian American trans actor on television, and being in VOA, which is an amazing Netflix original series, hugely popular. It's a worldwide hit. And then to transition from that, no pun intended, there's
It
gonna be
just
a lot of
happens.
trans jokes.
Literally every, like I've said this before. It's like I cannot say a word with the prefix trans in it and not have to make it, like, anytime someone says the word transmission, I'm like, what? I'm reporting for duty. What's the mission? What do you need?
Literally, it's like transform, and you're just like,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But yeah, no, going from OA to The Last of Us Part Two, which also, triple A game. I was working with Flora Bailey and Troy Bolton and Ashley Johnson, and people that like I admire so much and look up to so much. They're just like legends in the gaming industry. And going from that to now Star Trek Discovery, like it does feel like I'm breaking all these boundaries, pioneering all this, trans representation. But at the same time, it makes me sad that I'm like the first so many times, because I'm like, there are so many trans actors that I know that are so talented. It's so amazing. And like some of them are working, some of them are not, but like we all deserve to be starring in our own stuff, Like I'm like, when is there gonna be like a Euphoria, but with trans teams,
Yeah, exactly.
When
Yeah.
is there gonna be, action movies and like chick flicks and like, like just like stories that are told by trans people, centered around trans people. So I've been inspired lately to just be like, all right, well, then let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's all collaborate. Let's put our heads together. And so yeah, that's been one of the greatest things about like the internet and finding like a community online, and just like seeing, how safe the world is becoming for trans people now has been really affirming, and just being like, okay, like now's our chance. It's like the trans renaissance. Like we can just do whatever now, and people are actually going to be empathetic and support us and like advocate for us, instead of just, for so long it felt like trans people were fighting to not be alienated and to not be
Mhm.
ignored. And like we had allies on, in the LGBT community, but everyone else was just kind of like, what's a trans
Like,
person?
what? What, a tran? What? I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
what is it? Wait, so you were born this and then that, just like the typical really invasive
Oh,
questions.
believe me,
Um,
I worked at a Starbucks, and I would get people. It's like, so can you tell me about, like, have you had certain, like, I'm just trying to make you coffee. Come on.
you're like, do you want a medium or a large? Stop
Yeah.
asking me about my genitals. like, are you trying to
Exactly.
ask me on a date? Because like, don't try to get in my pants on the first date. Like, this is not the
Exactly.
appropriate. This is not the appropriate time to ask me about my pants. What's in my pants?
I'm like, I mean, if you're complimenting my pants, I'm down for that.
Exactly,
Because I
exactly.
think,
But
yeah, yeah,
anything
exactly.
beyond that,
Mm.
people, I think, because trans representation is so kind of, it's been erased and ignored and silenced for so long, it's sort of behind. I think now, like, I'm starting to see like a surge of like, trans actors and people who are coming out as trans, and people who are saying that they're coming out as non-binary, and people who are very visible in the public, like we have like India Moore, and we have Leo Shang, who's on like The
Mm.
L Word, and Brian Michael Smith, who's also on The L Word, and now he's on like cable TV. So like
Yeah.
it's really cool to see trans people of color um, in the mainstream media now, especially because for so long it was kind of just like there were only a small handful of visible trans
It's like
people
I
in the
could probably
media.
name like five people on the top of my like off the top of my head at
Exactly.
one point, and like, which is like, I loved them, but I'm just so glad, yeah, and like it's nice to see that explosion of trans people, and what I'm appreciating too, sort of seeing that, and I've seen in your characters too, but and just looking out at all the trans narratives that are out there, is like we're starting to see trans narratives focus less on like people being trans, and their being trans is not, irrelevant to whatever plot that they're involved in. Like, it'll come up from time to time where it is relevant, but we also just get to start seeing us exist in stories where it's like, yeah, we have all these things, and like when my trans identity may inform something or become relevant, that's where it comes up. But otherwise, you just get to exist. Like I love the fact that in Star Trek, um, it's not even been brought up yet that Gray is trans, and may not be. Which I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, I just hope that that's something that maybe is discussed in some like tie-in book way down the line that's like a prequel to your character, but never gets brought up in the show. But it's there, and that's just so insanely cool. And I'm curious what you feel about that. Having stepped, because I know Gray was a character that was in a way made for you, right? Because it was like sort of shifted because I know you went in for Adira's character, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I love that Gray just gets to exist and just be Adira's boyfriend, and that there isn't really much
Exactly.
question about it. I mean, they're like 930 years in the future, in the future. So it's like
Yeah.
at that point,
Who
gender
cares?
doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. Who cares exactly? That actually might have been a spoiler.
Oh, it's fine. I can cut that.
So actually, wait, I'm gonna cut that
Yeah,
part.
I'll cut that. Wow, I've
Yeah,
got the inside
I don't
scoop.
want to. I don't want to spoil anything,
Yeah.
but I mean, whether or not Gray does talk about his transition in the future, like that doesn't deny the fact that he is trans and he is intentionally written as a trans character. And I am the trans actor that plays him, but he's so much more than that. He's, a supportive, endearing, like uplifting person that just has this very protective and sort of paternal energy. And really cares for people around him. And so I'm really excited to see like his future and where he goes, and how his relationship with Adira sort of grows, because
Yeah.
I know more because we're filming stuff right
You know
now, but
more
can't talk
about
about
your character that you've been playing, and there's that. I'm so shocked. How did you get this information?
that. But yeah, no, I just have to keep that a secret until it comes
Keep
out.
it secret. Keep it safe. I get it.
um but sorry, I was thinking about the latter part of your question. Could you just remind me
I
what
know I hit
you
on many
asked?
points. My questions are just a rambling mess. So I'm not
No, it's
like your
okay.
professional like,
I lose my train of thought often, so I might ask you, be like, what was I saying again?
and I might also say, what was I saying again? So don't worry about it. That's why this is a casual thing. I'm not like, let's do the interview, because I would be terrible at that. Well, actually, one thing I did want to hit upon, because before I forget it, was because it was my favorite moment that you played so amazingly well in the show was, I think Adira has this line of, I don't get it, and things are moving so quickly. And Gray just says, like, it's not a race. You're being a crazy person. Like, that was, honestly, it's such a subtle moment, but I just love that affirmation of like validating their feelings about it, but also
Yeah,
affirming like that we're all learning together, and that this is like a journey.
exactly.
And that's something I've never really seen on on a TV show anywhere before about a trans narrative. It's like, it's either like you have to get it or you don't, and you're like the biggest transphobe whatsoever. And I like this acknowledgement that it is a transition. It's a period where we're all learning. And I like, what was that sort of discussed between you and the writers, or you and Blue, as you were sort of coming up with that scene? Because I think that was absolutely wonderful.
That specific line was not something that Blue or I brought up, I don't believe, but
Mhm.
it is so amazing how much of the dialogue does just parallel, like
Yeah.
talking about gender in a very nuanced way, in a way that's like, I'm still me. I'm still going to be the same me as before this, as I will be after. I'm just going to be more me. I'm just going to be more, you
Mhm.
know, more myself. And then sort of like those parallels, like of uh, joining with the Trill symbiont is similar. It could be interpreted as Gray physically transitioning. It could be
Mhm.
interpreted as him coming out. It could go a lot of different ways. But one of the moments that I love most is like how, like, okay, so Gray and Indira's relationship has blossomed so much since like when they initially conceived the
Yeah.
characters. Initially I don't know what they had planned, but I don't know. I think the role of Gray has blossomed and grown a lot as they met me, and sort of just like seen the future for the character, and how like strong the bond and chemistry is between Adira and Gray, and like
Mhm.
how kind of like um powerful and like almost like celestial their love is.
Yeah.
It feels very like poetic and like, you know, like kind of like, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Like it's kind of something out of like hmm,
I'm trying to think of the word too.
yeah,
Like a fairy
something out of an
tale or
epic. Yeah,
yeah,
kind of like a
yeah,
fairy tale sort of like an epic sort of fairy tale love.
yeah,
Um and yeah, I really love seeing that, just like that trans love on screen. It's so powerful, and it's so, I was literally like in tears when I was reading the script of like the moment that you know, Adira says like, I'm going to take this in me, and like I'll take them,
hmm,
I'll become the host. And like tears were streaming down my face because I was like, this is gonna be the moment where so many people see their love reflected on screen for the
yeah,
first time. And like having been a trans person, you know, in relationships with like other trans and non-binary people, it just means so much to me to like have such a strong, powerful relationship between two completely different, unique, incredible for their own reasons, like trans people.
yeah.
Just, it's so moving.
I can tell you personally that both you and Blue just acted that scene so wonderfully, and uh, I actually watched that scene with my ex, who is also trans, because you know it's also like the stereotypical like lesbian trope of like we're still friends even though we
Your
date.
friend, best friends, yeah.
Exactly. And so we were watching that scene and we were just like, it's fine, it's okay, because yeah, it is, you so rarely see that, like it is, there is that hard moment where Gray dies and goes through that, but I'm so glad that you still have like an active presence on the show, and you're not just like this sort of like, you know, backstory. You have an active participation, and it was just, it was just, as you say, like a really beautiful moment to just see something that it's, I guess the thing that I'm trying to get at is you don't really realize how much it's going to mean to you until you see the representation on screen. Like, it's one thing to say is like, I would love to see this sort of trans representation. I would love to see trans love on screen. I would love to see, you know, trans people in Star Trek. A show for me personally was something that's always been like a big deal in my life. But then when you actually see that happen, um, it just hits you, and you sort of like, if when you're in the middle of it, it just sort of like hits you in waves like, wow, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And it feels surreal in a really beautiful way. And I think both of you just played that scene, and it was written wonderfully too, but I think a lot of it comes down to just how wonderfully you both played that, and your chemistry is incredibly palpable too. Like, how was that your first scene that you two filmed together, or?
The first scene that we filmed together was at the end of episode 4 when I sort of reappear and Adira's like, how does this work?
Mhm.
And Gray's just like, I don't
Yo,
know.
I'm
And
here.
they're like, yeah, they're like, but how are you here? And like he's just like, I don't know, but I'm here. Um
Yeah.
and that was a really nice scene to start off with. Like I remember, you know, having just met them, being like, okay, I'm gonna basically like embrace them. And I felt a bit awkward, but after meeting them, like I just knew we were gonna be friends.
Hmm.
I have a really funny story to tell actually. The first time that me and Blue met, I believe, we were wearing the same outfit. And like I was just like I knew, and like I made a joke about
It's
it
like,
too,
oh.
because like I pointed out that we were wearing the same thing and I was like, it's because we're trans. And Blue said that that was actually very like validating and affirming for them. So I was like, I'm glad that my humor, my like gaydar was validating for you. But we were both wearing like a beanie, like one dangly earring, one stud,
Oh my gosh.
black hoodie, black pants, black boots.
Oh my
Like
gosh, that is,
same thing head to toe.
that is hysterical. Yeah, see, I was joking with you before you came up, but like my fashion sense is nothing. So I'm just like, I probably would have just showed up in pajamas. And so I'm glad that you two like add that moment, because that's actually adorable. I have noticed that too, though, that like the trans community has sort of created very like its own sort of fashion style, and that's, and
Yeah.
as is evidenced by what you're wearing right now, which is freaking
With my
amazing. I love it.
glittery black tier and my like several chains that I have tied and chained all over my body. Yeah.
I,
This is what I want to look like because I want to go out in public and feel like glittery and shiny and sparkly. And this is just what makes me feel like me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I have the confidence to do that, because like for so long, I think, I did sort of like filter my gender expression through what I thought other people would like perceive as valid. They'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, like I'm going to gender this person correctly. But now, I mean, coming out as non-binary, I've just kind of accepted that like a majority of people aren't going to get it. They're going to see me and they're going to perceive a gender onto me, whether they assume that I'm a man or a woman. They would be incorrect either way. So I'm just kind of at that point where I've just like liberated myself from that like exhaustion of being misgendered, because I'm just like, they don't get it. And that's fine. I'm above that. I'm beyond that. I've just sort of like ascended gender.
It's like you reach that point of like, yeah, I
Enlightenment.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the word. I had I had a very similar experience to that, because I remember when I first came out, I had a therapist that I was seeing at the time, and I was like, "Am I still allowed to be able to like video games? Can I still like comic books? Is that a thing?" Like that's like the level I was at, because I'm like, "Oh, women aren't allowed to like these things." Which was silly and dumb and weird, because you're just like, I've been wanting to be seen as this gender for so long, that you just like, what does that mean, as you sort of like lean into tropes of it a little bit, and also trying to do it for others. But as I've gone on and I've felt more comfortable in my own skin, and being like, this is just who I am, it's just been nice to like be like, nah, I am just gonna be the pajama queen or whatever. um
Exactly. Do
yeah,
what makes you happy. Do it for
exactly.
you.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, and if this is too personal, please feel free to stop. But I do know that you spoke recently, and you just mentioned that you have come to realize that you are non-binary. And how's that like journey been for you to like come to
Hmm.
that sort of realization? And you've already touched upon it, but I'm just so curious, because it is such a
Hmm.
cool journey. I think it's a cool journey that we don't talk about more, because I think gender should be fun. Gender should be this exciting thing, and it's unfortunately been politicized so much, but it should be this really cool, fun exploration of self. And I'm so glad that you're having that journey.
Exactly. I think like people are finally realizing now that like gender identity is a spectrum just like sexuality is. And
Hmm.
like really there's the freedom to explore anywhere within that. And there's no wrong answer. Like you can sort of explore and then like figure out, okay, maybe this isn't right for me. And that's sort of what I did. Like I came out initially as, well, my sexuality and gender has sort of shifted all over the place by
Hmm.
my throughout my life, as a lot of like trans people have experienced, just like
Yeah.
coming out and like, okay, like I'm a lesbian woman. Oh, actually, I'm a trans gay man. Oh, actually, no, I'm attracted to kind of just like anyone that I'm attracted to,
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
also non-binary. So it's like kind of just like my understanding of binaries and like where I align on that spectrum, like it's always changing too.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, is just like recognizing that like you can be whatever. Like society has all these rules for literally no reason. And so the more that like people just live out and freely and like their own true selves, it inspires other people to do the same thing. So that's what, I'm sure that like um I've encouraged people to just like wear what they want to wear and do what they want to do. Because even before coming to terms with my non-binary identity, like I was still very expressive, like with my clothing and like with my makeup and stuff like that, because all of those things are genderless.
Yeah.
Wearing nail polish and wearing makeup doesn't make me non-binary. I'm just non-binary because I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I think really the big tipping point for me was like spending a lot of time alone during like this pandemic,
Yeah.
and just sort of reflecting and being like, do I really feel like a man? Because I don't feel like a man. And I'm most certainly not a woman. I haven't felt like a woman. And so I just kind of was like, huh, well, gender's fake.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was just sort of the conclusion I came to, was just like, I don't need a gender. So that's where I'm kind of at right now. I think if I like did have to give a label to what I feel, it would be agender.
Hmm.
But I just don't think there necessarily is a point in always using like a specific term to describe my gender, because my gender can't be defined. That's the whole point of my personal like non-binary identity, is that like I want to be this sort of just like being that exists beyond gender.
Well, I think like I think humanity in general is that even beyond a trans experience, like we're always sort of shifting and changing. And like, even for a person who is cis, I would argue, and I'm not going to like tell someone how they feel about it, but you know, I feel like someone's recognition, understanding of their gender at 10 years old is going to be different than when they're 60. And it changes throughout their entire life. And I feel like being trans just sort of gives us this, for a lot of trans folks, I don't want to overgeneralize it, but for a lot of trans folks, I feel like it's just this freedom to be like, recognize that we can shift and change and be more than we're told to be. And I feel like we do that anyways as people. And I feel like that's something that we can identify across just human experience. But I just love that being trans, being non-binary, being part of this community just makes that explicit and gives you that permission to do that. And it's just such a cool thing. I wish, you know, I try to, the thing that I've always, there was this moment, sorry, I'm like jumping around again. This is why I'm not a professional
You're good.
interviewer.
You're good.
But it just reminds me of this moment in my life where when I was coming out as trans and I was trying to sort of explain my feelings to someone else, to a cis person and close friend. And every single time I said something like, this is how I feel about, you know, my identity. And the person said, I could never understand that. Could never understand that. It's a totally unique experience. But also I felt this way about it in this way in my life. And then it had that happen repeatedly throughout that conversation. I'm like, so what you're telling me is like, you may not know the specific feeling I'm feeling as a trans person with my gender, but you have felt all of these feelings. And so it just made me realize in that moment that like, we're all just human and we all feel these feelings in different ways. And you know, it's nice to like talk about how the trans and non-binary community is affected specifically, because we need to talk about that, because there is a lot of stuff that we face that others don't. But it is also important to remember that we're a universal human experience. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. So I wish I had a specific question for you. I was trying to like, I was hoping I'd say this and lead into a question for you, and it didn't come out. So
No, totally. I mean, I have something to add on to that. Totally. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I absolutely agree. And I think what I'm trying to do specifically with like the awareness and visibility that I'm bringing to, social media, the entertainment industry, and whatever industry I dabble my fingers into in the future, because I'm capable of more than one thing. I
Transition
just
in
want
your
people to
careers. It's
see
wonderful.
exactly. I want to see people look at people and just see people. I don't want people to place people into any binary. And like I've been placed into so many different binaries throughout my life, like as a biracial person, like I'm Vietnamese and I'm white. And
Mhm.
so, there have been times in my life where people are like, okay, well, you're ethnically ambiguous. What are you? And same thing for my gender. People can't place me as male or female. So then they'll be like, all right, well, your gender is kind of ambiguous.
Pick
What are
one, dang
you?
it. What are you?
and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and they're always trying to like place me, and I'm like, why can't you just like let me exist and
Yeah.
like don't worry about it? Like
Yeah.
it's really just so liberating when you just don't care anymore about like what people are, and you just connect with them and you just talk to them and like learn about them through their personality. And people are so accepting of people having different personalities and different hobbies and interests and careers. And some people can't perceive the idea that like people might also have the same sort of variety of genders,
Yeah.
so
It's IDAC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, as as the nerd me wants to say immediately. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think humanity is just really beautiful, and I think that's yeah. I appreciate that we're allowing to start ourselves to see that in here.
absolutely.
Um, what I do want to try and bring it back to Star Trek a little bit, just because I know folks are thinking about that. Or I'm a professional. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm gonna leave this in, by the way. Everyone's just gonna laugh. It's like, Jesse, you're a fool. I love it. Um, but one of the things I did want to ask you about when it came to Star Trek was, what do you feel like you want to see like next for trans representation in Star Trek? I mean, obviously, you can't. I'm sure you know what's coming out in season 3 and into season 4, but what would you like to see even beyond what you know specifically in the show?
I love that you asked that question
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've been talking about this. Um, I would love to see trans people exist in the universe beyond Gray and Adira, because if you jump to the future and you meet a few trans people, there's got to be more, and they don't necessarily have to be aliens. They could be other people, in the Federation maybe, or they could be aliens. Like I'm saying, there's got to be so many opportunities for there to be just galaxies explored, planets visited, away missions gone on where someone can come in for a few episodes. I would just love and love and love to see trans writers being brought into the writers room. I would love and love to see more trans people being hired in the crew. There's just so much potential for the future of not just Star Trek, but every production. Like this is like across the board, every single show should be doing this. So I'm really, really excited to see where we go and maybe seasons 5 and 6. I'm in this for the long haul, so I'm really excited to see future of Star Trek.
Well, I just want to see the spin-off show with you and Blue, like Star Trek Blue and Gray. I just picked that because colors, but Gray and Adira, I shouldn't say. I just like Blue and Gray. Anyways,
goes well. Yeah. It's funny because I feel like trans people sometimes like often have like a color as their name.
Yeah.
And when I met Blue, I made a joke about how like, I was like, trans people are like, oh, my name is Blue. And then they were just like, oh. Like they felt called out.
I've been seen.
Really,
oh no.
They're like, oh, it's validating but also attacking at the same time.
I just
friendly teasing, friendly banter.
Now I want to get like change my name again. Pick like a new name and have it be like a really like out there color, like turquoise or whatever.
Cerulean.
Cerulean, yes. Ooh, that's actually a cool name. That actually is a great name. I adore that name.
Ooh, yeah. That's the beauty of like the human experience, is that you can change your name whenever, you can change your gender, you can change where you're living, you can change wherever, you can, as long as you have obviously like the resources, and it is difficult for most people actually to access like name change stuff because the hoops that you have to jump through.
I remember like I had to pay when I changed my name, I had to like go to the court and you had to like put in the court documents or whatever in New York. And at the time I didn't have a lot of money. And I think it was like $100 or something like that, which to like submit the court document, which is just for someone who's like does not have a lot of money and is like working at Starbucks, like that's a lot. And it just sucks that we have to have this just access to the basic necessities of just expressing yourself as a trans person are closed off to some people. So, and I also, actually, I wanted to, this seems like a good spot to bring this up too. I do know that you do Cameo and all the money that you make there is going to trans people of color and trying to help trans people of color. Am I correct in that, right?
Yes, yeah. So my Cameo shout outs, 100% of those proceeds, I'm just directly donating to people's like Cash Apps and GoFundMes and things like that. And so I've donated so far. No, this would be a good opportunity for me to bring up my stats. Because all of the cameos have been mainly Star Trek fans, donating their money to this good cause. And I know Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp, who are also, on the cast, they're also
I've never heard of them. I don't know who they are.
I just for context.
No, I know. I'm being facetious. I've never met Anthony, but I've met Wilson briefly, and he's also a wonderful human. So
they're so wonderful. Yeah, they're both so wonderful, and both of them right now are also raising funds and donating 100% to different causes. Wilson's doing GLSEN, which is an LGBT organization, and Anthony's doing stuff for HIV awareness and AIDS Day. So right now, on Cameo, oh, this makes me so proud. I total have donated to currently 4 different people, but I'm just adding on sort of like whoever is in the most urgent need each time I donate. $728.11.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's absolutely wonderful.
That it just, these are people that have reached out to me for help, and so it just really gives me so much joy to be able to give back to the community and to make the difference between someone being able to like keep their housing and something that's just like so crucial and like should be a human right, but for whatever reason the government has just decided that people don't deserve to live.
Capitalism
Um,
is fun. Yay. Sorry.
mhm.
uh, but
But
yeah.
yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up because yeah, I try to promote that as much as I can. I know that not everyone has $40 to be able to donate to, booking a Cameo, but for those people that do, it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
And there are ways that you can just like donate smaller amounts because like if you send a DM, it's like $1.99 to send. So for people that just like maybe they want to donate like their spare change, basically just like a buck or two,
Yeah.
you can also just like shoot me a message too. So
Hell
a
yeah.
promo for my Cameo.
Yeah. That's a lot. Promo for my Cameo. I feel like that should be like a tagline for that. Love it. But yeah,
It's
that's absolutely.
like insert in this box here, do the YouTuber thing, click
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
link.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Like right now, right there. It's a
Yeah.
cute. Ooh, look. It's where would I put it? I don't even know in the frame. Like right here. Look. Ooh.
Ooh.
Look for that in the edit. But yeah, I think it is nice. It's so nice to see like how many, in not just the trans community, but in many minority and marginalized communities in the LGBTQ community too. It's just like seeing so many people wanting to give back and wanting to like help others and help like not like draw up the ladder behind you as they say, but like help bring people up. And so I'm just like it speaks to how wonderful you are, and how wonderful this community is that you're
Yeah.
doing that work. And so just you're I'm singing your praises over and over again already, but you are
Thank
absolutely
you.
wonderful, and
Thank
it's
you so
a
much.
wonderful thing to see. So
Yeah, I mean, I try my best to use my platform for good, and I know
hmm
that I do have a lot of ability to do things like this, and
hmm
so I'm just really grateful for the people that can help me make it happen. Because like I, I I think that now because of the pandemic, like so many people have kind of woken up and seen just like this common humanity, like you were talking about earlier.
yeah
There's common humanity between all of us, and like I've noticed a lot of people's empathy has just really vastly like grown so much in the past few months. Um, and like that's why there's so much like I think attention to really important issues like Black Lives Matter and
yeah
trans healthcare, being affected for teens in the UK and different issues, all across the world. Like I just really see a lot of like humanitarian aid popping up. And people also finally having the courage to ask for help too, I think is the biggest thing. Because like for so long there's kind of just this stigma against
yeah it's
like
like you can
making a
pull yourself.
GoFundMe.
Yeah, pull yourself out of
Yeah,
your bootstraps yourself. Like it's like, no, we're in this together. Like that's what humanity
exactly.
is.
I think people are realizing that capitalism has like lied to us.
Yeah.
People
Oh
are
my
finally like waking up and realizing that and just being like,
oh,
oh
capitalism is
wait,
crap, actually. So
yeah.
what a shock.
You mean like there are people that just they work, they work three jobs and yet they still can't pay their rent and feed their families? What? But I thought if you just work really hard, it's the American dream, right? But so people are
Yeah.
sort of waking up out of that. And it's really sad that it took like such a worldwide crisis in order for people to kind of snap out and realize that. But
hmm
um, I'm really glad because I've always been really into giving back into the community. I've really been into like community service and things like that.
Yeah.
Because community is so important, and we all deserve to lean on each other when we need to. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as you said earlier, it's been those like weird contradictions where we're at our most isolated. And I feel it's probably because we are at our most isolated that we most like want to reach out to other people. And because of that,
Mhm.
we're able to put ourselves in other people's shoes in ways that we haven't been able to before. And, I don't want to say that this pandemic has been like a good thing overall, because it's been hard for me, for other people in many, many different ways. But if there is a silver lining to it, I think it is that. And so it's been nice to see, and you've been an exemplar of that. So I think that is wonderful.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. To shift gears almost completely, but I also did want to, because we kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier, was your relationship with Wilson and Anthony and Blue as well. And what I love, one of the things I love about Discovery in particular, and Star Trek as a whole, but Discovery in particular, is just how wonderful of a family it all seems. both on screen and behind the scenes. And I'm really loving that this show has started to show, and it's where we're at on TV, and I'm assuming that's just gonna grow in the next few episodes, is getting to see, you know, the relationship grow between Wilson, Anthony, Blue, yourself, as characters, and seeing that sort of like chosen queer family starting to grow. And I've never seen a chosen queer family in Star Trek, and that is so beautiful to see. And then that's also reflected, I think, behind the scenes, because you talk about not only the relationship with those three, but with the whole cast and crew. And I know you also do a Dungeons and Dragons game as well, which I want to talk
Yes.
about. But before we get to that, I just like, can you speak to like what it's like to sort of be building that family both on screen and behind the screen?
It means so much to me that like our characters could just like grow and like develop that relationship with each other that really mirrors what goes on behind the screen too.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really is just like that dynamic, like you said, of there being like really close family on set, and like you can feel it. I mean, it was kind of intimidating to step into as a newcomer for season 3, because I stepped into, you know, these people that are just like so friendly with each other. They're just like joking around. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I feel like the new kid at school, kind of. You know, I was like, I feel
Like, where are the
shy.
clicks? I don't know who I'm. This
Yeah,
the fan geeks. I need
exactly.
that.
But like immediately, you know, immediately like Siniqua reaches out and welcomes me. You know, of course, Blue and I were already getting along, so we're kind of like buddies in it together. We're like, oh, we're the new kids. So, you know, having Blue is definitely just like they're such an anchor and just like
Mm-hmm.
such a really, really cherished friendship. And the more that I got to know, like I was definitely like intimidated of like Anthony and Wilson, because you know, I was like,
Oh,
oh
believe
my
me, I know.
God.
The first time I met
Like
Wilson was on a red carpet, and he came up to me, and I've met him sort of more casually after that, just briefly. But he came up to me on a red carpet. I'm like, oh no, it's Wilson Cruz. What do I do? Hi, how are you? So I know the feeling.
just like getting like flustered, but like they're so brilliant and they're just so kind and supportive, and like i've I've really, I mean, found out like how similar we are in many, many ways too. And I think that they do see a lot of themselves sort of reflected in me and Blue, because they're like, oh, these young queer actors, like, oh, I've been there before, you know, because they're thinking back to like them in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been so lovely to be able to have them, and to have that bond both on set and off of set, because especially now like we can't really see anyone, so like just being able to talk you know, over FaceTime or Zoom, or like meet up at a park or something with like a
Mm-hmm.
familiar face is just like so, it's so like cherished. And I think like really like every social interaction is really granted, or not, what was I trying to say? Every social interaction is like really appreciated and not taken for
Mm-hmm.
granted at all
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah,
But to be able to share that like with Blue, I think really, I know that like that's gonna be a lifelong friendship, you know?
yeah.
Like the way that we just like understand and connect and support each other has just been like really life changing,
Yeah.
because they inspire me a lot, and they've really like introduced me, and we've, you know, we've helped each other in so many ways, but you know, they've introduced me to some of their friends that have sort of welcomed me in, and I've introduced them to some of my friends that have welcomed them in, and there's just this like mutual understanding that like we don't have to go through this alone. Like we are two trans actors that, you know, are on a really big
Yeah.
worldwide phenomenon show, but that doesn't mean that we're
You
all
have,
alone. So
yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to like face all that alone and have to do it alone, because like you know, you know, obviously I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I know that the Star Trek community is loving and wonderful and welcoming, but I also know that it's huge and intimidating, and you're stepping into like an over 50-year-old thing that many people have many different opinions on. So it's
mhm.
got to be really scary, and I'm glad that you both have each other, and I'm glad that you have the rest of that cast that's there, and especially Wilson and Anthony as well, who have gone through, I'm sure, a very similar experience as being, you know, LGBTQ members who have, you know, sort of come up in this type of career. But it is, for me, just looking in on that, it's like that is the thing that makes me the happiest. Like I love TV shows, obviously, but the shows that I fall in love with are where I know that like the people making it are really wonderful and caring people. So I'm just glad that everyone's doing that and everyone's reflective of that and welcoming you. Um, Speaking on that though, the Dungeons and Dragons game, everyone's asking about it. It's a Twitter phenomenon, and everyone
Yeah.
everyone wants to know. But what? So my question is, what do you play, and how
Mhm.
has it been going? It's like I need to know. I really need to know.
Okay, so I will summarize sort of like our D&D group quickly before diving into my character.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um, our group is DM'd by Noah, who um,
Who I'm actually
he
speaking with him next week too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, amazing. Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, he's our DM. He's our masterful DM. Also married to Mary,
Hmm.
who is also in our group. Mary and Anthony and Blue and Emily. So it's us, and we meet every Sunday,
Yeah.
and we have our D&D campaign. And my character is Vivi, so I spell Vyvee.
Hmm. Oh, I
Um,
love that. Two different ways to say the same
yeah,
word. I love
just cute
it.
spelling, two different ways to
Yeah,
show like their duality.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
they're a genderless wood elf. They are a bard, so they sing and they play
Mhm.
instruments. They play the ukulele, and they play
Oh, I love it. I love it.
they also play the drums, and they might play a third instrument. I haven't decided yet. I haven't really like, I'm
Explore
still
your
figuring out the
identity. Explore
character
your instrumental
exactly. Yeah,
identity. Come on.
I'm leaving some room
Hmm.
open for growth later on, some character
Exactly.
development later on. Um, and they're a very bright, cheery, charismatic bard. They can be, kind of I don't know what the word is, like extremely idealistic. So they will try to be friends with like literally anyone,
Hmm.
including, this happened during our campaign. Noah starts describing this like bloodthirsty, extremely dangerous, extremely intelligent beast that's lurking around. Um it's the oh, what's the name? Oh my god. Not my Minotaur, but the
Oh, I'm blanking
um
too. I know what you're talking about.
starts with an M. I'm pretty sure Manticore.
Yes. Okay.
So
Okay.
this really dangerous beast, the Manticore, and immediately I go, hi, Manticore.
Oh, that's a
Vivi
lovely.
waltzes into the forest. So Vivi's a very, they're gay.
Yeah, yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
hi, let's be friends. And literally, I rolled a 22 persuasion check and ended up becoming friends with this manticore by the end of our session that day, because
That
we
is wonderful.
successfully pulled off a mission for them to sort of like regain control of their nest
Hmm.
after some orcs had taken it over.
Oh,
And so that's why
sweet.
they were like lurking
All
around the
angry.
village, being all angry and suspicious, because they were like, my home was taken away from me. And so, of course, Vivi, being the charismatic empath they are, they were like, hey, friend, what's wrong? What's bothering you? Let's talk about it.
I love
And
that.
then, ended up helping them out, and did them a huge favor. And when they returned successfully, Vivi was like, well, like, I will be around town, so if you ever want to grab coffee or something, we can hang out.
I
And
love it.
you know, it was an offer that was not declined. It was kind of like a passive yes. It wasn't like a
Mm,
hard yes,
mm. It's
but
like I'll show up. It's like
I'll consider. Yeah,
yeah,
sure. Like,
yeah.
maybe I'll see you around. So it wasn't a rejection.
It
So I'm
wasn't a
taking it
no.
as a
It's
win.
really yeah. Exactly. It's like there's a path here. We can make this work.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
I'll win the Manticore over. Vivi will win the Manticore over for sure.
Do it. Yeah, I that's what I love about D&D. I actually had is they can kind of like have those weird moments of unexpected friendship. I had a character who was a half orc who had an intelligence so low that they technically could not speak. They did not know how to like actually verbalize, and so I was like, well, how do I characterize this character? And it was fun. Their name was Al because they couldn't say anything.
Mhm.
But what I loved with them is the first encounter they had was a giant throwing rocks at them, and so they thought that that was a gesture of friendship. So throughout the rest of the campaign, I had this character just give people rocks as like a kind is like a kind
Oh,
gesture, and it was just like the sweetest, like kindest thing. And so I love D&D for that. So I'm so glad.
that is such a sweet character, and I love. Oh, that's so creative too, because you're just like you're playing with all different sorts of like types of self-expression, including like communication and like verbal
Hmm.
expression. And like with D&D, I think we were talking about this, the group was talking about this in one of the previous interviews that we did.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how like you get to just improv and you get to sort of have creative control over your character,
Mhm.
and you're not being told what to say.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
something that's just so liberating as an actor that normally has a script, to be able to just like freestyle and just like, have fun and play and sort of get back into that like childlike wonder of just like exploring and, doing things kind of impulsively and recklessly. And it's so much fun.
I didn't even make that connection, but yeah, that is so true that you as an actor, you must have like so many things prescribed to you. And obviously you have a lot of creative control within that, but it is a lot of just like, this is what you're saying, this is who your character, what your character's going to say. And so it's gotta be nice to sort of like bring up those acting chops, but then have the freedom to like extrapolate out, and sort of build your own sort of creativity within that. That's gotta be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun. I just am getting into D&D with, this is my first like official campaign, because I kind of, I done like one time before, like just
Mm.
once, and I didn't really like finish creating my character because I was very indecisive. But
Hmm.
this is the first time where I committed and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make backstory for this character and everything. And it's been so much fun, and it's really like helping me just kind of build up my confidence and like, and learning how to be social again. Because like after
Yeah.
being alone for so long, I was like, oh my god, I forgot what it's like talking to people.
Believe me. Why do you think I'm a YouTuber? I can yell at a camera and pretend it's a person. It's like, this
Exactly.
is my social interaction for the day. But yeah, no, that it is nice to like see that. I think that's also part of why people are so excited to like learn like what's going on in your game, because it's just nice to see like
Yeah.
people just hanging out and doing social stuff. So I'm so glad that you're having a lot of fun, and thank you for sharing like you and to the rest of the group for like sharing that with the community out and about, because that's just, it's nice to see. And so I'm so glad that you
Mhm.
all have that.
I'm sure
um
it's just bringing some, a lot of validation to people who, also love D&D, and they're like, oh wait, like
they like the
these
thing
actors
too.
are normal people. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
like
yeah,
normal people that can be nerdy and,
yeah. That has to be actually, it's something I'm curious to ask you about, because especially with like, especially when you enter into something like this, but I know also you probably experienced this with The Last of Us and the OA as well. There's probably a little bit of like distancing, because you're a human being who lives a full life and does many other things, but also you're like this character that means so much to so many people, and having to balance that of like, I'm a human being with my own thoughts and feelings, but I also know that I've become in many ways kind of a symbol to people. And how does that feel for you to have to like see those two things out there in the world about who you are and how people see you?
Yeah, I mean, I know every actor feels differently about this. So like from my personal experience, it is nice to have like these characters sort of just like become my part of my history.
Hmm.
So like I I feel like, my characters are, even though they are characters and they are fictional, they sort of like once I have finished, or like while I'm acting as them, like they sort of forever become a part of just like I did represent that character at one point. So I'm not
Yeah,
saying that I am those people, but just
of
like it's
course.
sort
Yeah.
of like a part of my identity. So it doesn't necessarily feel wrong. Like say for example, if like I post a picture of my face and then someone comments like, "Oh my god, Buck," or like, "Oh my god, Lev,"
Yeah, yeah.
um, that doesn't feel wrong necessarily, because I'm just like, "Oh yeah, like I did that character is me and I embody that character." Um, Although it will be really interesting kind of just to see what happens in the future as my career progresses and I just have like
Yeah,
more and more and more characters. Like, will it become, oh, Ian, or will it just sort of always be like, oh, whatever character he
yeah.
plays? So I'm just interested to see like how that will develop.
Well, I am for one for sure that you're gonna have many, 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 many roles, and you're gonna be
Thank you.
amazing. And I'm gonna, one day we're gonna see Ian Alexander on the Oscar stage. That's going to happen. I am very much on board that train.
Well, I am ready whenever they are ready for me, but I don't think
Yeah.
the Oscars are ready for trans people
Oh no, they aren't.
yet.
But we will make them ready, or you will make
We
them
will
ready at the very
certainly,
least. You and
I'll
my mom.
certainly, me and my whole team of like kick A trans actors that are ready to like tear the whole industry and just like
Hmm.
rebuild a utopia, we're ready. We're
I am
ready.
down for that. I'm here for it. But
Yes.
yeah, it's gotta be interesting, and I am so excited to see your career grow. And it is. I do also know that because of Star Trek being Star Trek, I'm sure you'll be like 60 years from now, someone will come up to you and say, "Gray meant so much to me, and I adore Gray," and you'll be like, "Wow, that was so long ago, and still means so much." And that's like the beauty of your work and beauty of Star Trek and beauty of just all these things. But I am so excited for your career going forward. And kind of speaking on that, I know that you filmed already a movie called Mother, right? I believe is what it was called.
Called Daughter.
Daughter. I'm sorry, got
Yes.
got the female gendered role wrong.
Yes.
What was that like? It's your first like starring role, I believe, like lead character role.
Yeah. So this was my first lead in, you know, in a feature film, and my character gets to just exist. You know, we were talking about this earlier, but like
Hmm.
it's so beautiful that like Gray on Star Trek Discovery and, you know, some of my other characters, they just get to, you know, exist, and it's not necessarily like a defining character trait that they are trans. Like it will come up when it is relevant, but
Yeah.
yeah, no. So I get to play brother, another gendered family term name, and that does get explained in the
Hmm.
film,
Hmm.
but I won't go into it without spoiling
Yeah,
it.
don't ruin it for
Um,
me. I want to watch the movie, so don't ruin
it's
it.
very, yeah, it's very, I will just sort of describe it very like abstractly so that I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
spoil
of course.
anything, but it's a very art house film. So
Mm.
it's something that's super unique, created, you know, created by a team of people of color who are all, you know, like we're all just like wanting to make our own stuff. We're just
Hmm.
tired of not feeling represented and seen. And so Corey Deshawn, our writer and director, just created the script based off of, you know, he wanted to write something where I could play sort of a little brother role. And my castmate and co-star Vivian Gno can just play, she can just play like, you know, like
And
a older sister character, but like not really. I don't know how to. Okay,
yeah.
so sort of an older sister, but without getting into it too much, they're not biologically related.
Mm,
So
gotcha,
yeah, no, it was
gotcha.
really interesting. Like he explored that dynamic of like, okay, they have sort of a
Chosen
familial
that
relationship,
chosen family idea sort of thing. I
that
like that.
chosen family
Yeah,
idea,
yeah.
exactly, a chosen family, but within the dynamic of a really strict sort of cult-like almost family where they're not allowed to go outside.
Yeah.
And this was shot and written like pre-pandemic, so it's like really
Yeah, it's hitting.
scarily accurate now.
It's one of those like weird things that I've noticed with so much media, even media that came out before this, like, oh, that hits so differently now after the pandemic. It's like it's
Mhm.
almost as if the pandemic just heightened things that already existed, as
Yeah,
opposed to
no,
yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, yeah. But no, that's so insanely cool. I'm very excited to see that. I'm very excited that you get to like grow in that role too. Um, yeah, I guess the last thing I kind of want to wrap this up because I know we're sort of running short on time, and I didn't want to be too take too much of your time. But I wanted to ask you: is there anything that you feel that either we didn't touch upon in this conversation, or that you never really get asked publicly that you want to talk about? Because I feel like I have things that I want to talk to you about, and we've touched on a lot of it, but I would just want to hear like what you want to talk about because sometimes I feel like actors and people who create don't always get to talk about the things they want to.
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. You know, people kind of will always ask that question at the end of just like, oh, is there anything you want to talk about? But like, it's always just so open-ended that I'm like,
What,
I
what?
don't know. I've never been given this agency before. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to
Um,
the script. Where's the script? No,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. I'm like, no, you got to give me like some sort of direction with it. But no, I really, I love that you frame that in the way of like, you know, actors don't often get asked this, you know, to talk about just whatever they want to talk about. We were kind of talking about it before, you know, when we just like initially hopped on the call, but like seeing you and like other trans creators and
Mm,
people who are just like making their own stuff and just, you know, really just like taking their skills and, you know, taking their opinions and putting them out there. That is so brave and so inspiring to me.
mm,
And, you know, I think for so long I've just been holding back and waiting for permission to sort of like do the things that I want to do. And I, you know, I'm not going to hold myself back anymore. I'm like, I want to make stuff. I want to have my own show. I want
Yes.
to, you know, I want to invite people to collaborate with me. I want to just bring in anyone and everyone that would want to be, you know, involved. Because I know so many amazing trans artists and musicians and, you know, people that could do, you know, just like presentations and Q&As and um, like streamers, like Twitch streamers,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
know, just like so many different like worlds and worlds of different creative industries that like so many trans people are kind of limited to right now to how society sees us, how society perceives us. And I want us to be able to have a space. I want to be able to curate a safe space for us to just exist and to just do literally whatever. And it's
Yeah.
just going to be like a stream of random content. You know, like some of it will be very like serious and planned and organized, and some of it will just be random chaotic comedy skits for no reason. So I am really excited to finally just like participate in this, like what I'm witnessing is like I like to call it a trans renaissance right now. Like
Mhm. The
finally trans people are
transisance.
getting the transisance. Yeah. Finally, like trans people are getting the respect and the empathy from the
Mhm.
general public that we deserve, that we've deserved for so long. Trans people have been erased from history, even though we have existed. We
Yeah.
always have existed.
Mhm.
And so I'm so, so grateful to be a part of this movement, and I'm really excited to just like really take the reins and just go full on ahead and to
Heck
involve
yeah.
and bring up as many people as I can, because like I want to use my platform to like help out other trans creators too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I'm
that's yeah, I am so excited for this. I am all on board the transisance or the trans renaissance. I that's sounds beautiful and wonderful. And I'm honored that you include me in that, like that sort of like group of people, of trans creators making stuff and making stuff that are like, because I just feel like I'm shooting stuff into the world with from my brain pan. And I'm glad that it connects. And you know, this is something that I see you doing so strongly, and it's something that I've learned about myself. And I give this advice to you and to anyone watching this too, is like, trust your voice, because your voice is absolutely beautiful and amazing. And I'm so glad that you are doing that, because one of the things that when I started creating, I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this. I don't know what's going on. But I found that the things that did well were always the ones that where I shared the most of myself with the
yeah,
world. And
yeah.
I'm glad that I've started to learn that, and I'm so glad that you're doing that. Like, you seem to be doing that already in spades, well beyond me. And so I'm so glad that you want to create that space for more people to be able to be weird and strange and awkward and funny and confident and all those different things all at once. So I'm very excited to see that going forward, and um, I'm sure you're going to manifest it, as you've manifested so many wonderful other things about
Thank
yourself
you.
and your career and your life. So
Thank you so much. And honestly, I just want to like add on to, you know, what you just
yeah,
said, which was so beautiful. I think that the things that have sort of alienated us from society, you know, like the weird and the awkward and the kind of quirky and sort of like, you know, our queerness and our gender, all of those things that sort of alienated us before are now going to be our superpowers. They always
yeah,
have been, but now
hmm,
we finally get to be recognized for that, and how beautiful and just strong and powerful we all are. So, thank you. Thank you for
yeah.
having me on your show. I'm so glad that I get to be a part of it, and you know, to the transissance.
Yes, to the transisons. Yeah. And last thing I'll say is I thank you for coming on. Uh it has honestly been an honor to talk to you. And it's honestly been an honor to like welcome you into the, you know, I wasn't the one who decided this. This is the casting people over at Discovery, but it is so wonderful to just have you in the Star Trek community, and just in the trans community, and just in the human community. Like, you are just such a wonderful ray of beautiful light, among like many other wonderful rays of beautiful lights in all of those communities. And so I'm just so glad. I'm so glad that you exist, and I'm so honored that I got the chance to talk to you, even for this short while. So
Thank you so much.
yeah,
That really means a lot to me.
of
Thank you.
course. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and we'll bid you all adieu. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you to all of my patrons this month, but especially Amanda Ronye Idanya, Catherine Lambeth, Ashley Ellen Bokikio, Miranda Janelle, Eli Bergmas, Ashlyn Solstice, Michael D., Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Ulysses the Pagan, Randy Thompson, Munir Amlani, Chamomile T., Stephen Schuhart, Wellington Marcus, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Wayne Twitchell, Ish the Mad, Buttoneer, Roar, Christina Dalliance, Dominic Noble, John Steele, Michael Beam. She sells seashells by the seashore of Bajor. William Stewart, Gavin Robinson, The Sir Spence, BBD, Hannah F., Nathan Olson, Jason Knott, Andrew Jorgensen, Chris Brown, Jasmine, Maeve, Bree Beecher, Subraxis, Skylar Gray, Nathan Steele, Jane Packard and Chloe Dollar, Wen Dizzlebizzle, Gretchen Badger, Geek Filter, Bush, Celestial Dawn, Din, Sarah Bastam, Polly Mina, Jacob Tovar, Piston Twisted Garage, Lily, Jean Mithun, Andrew Lamori, Lysa, Zone 1 Librarian, Michael Hardy, Corey Honkanen, and KT Dunn. Thank you so much to all of you. You're quite literally making my dreams come true, so I cannot tell you how thankful I am.